Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Last week, I released my third poetry collection, which is titled Freemartin, as a digital chapbook. If you didn't see that, check the previous week's email and you'll find a copy in there for you. So come check it out. The poems are intended to be read aloud, so today I'm going to share them here the way they were meant to be enjoyed. I'm also going to share a little bit of backstory and further context for the poems as well. So, again, thank you for joining, and please enjoy Freemartin by me, Lizzy Co. So, and a quick note about the title Freemartin is a term I learned earlier this year, and it refers to one member of a set of cow twins. When there is a male and a female twin, they call the female twin a Freemartin. And the idea is that the female is exposed to male hormones in the womb, and she just develops a little differently. And when I learned that, like a like a big gong deep inside me rang. I was like, yeah, that feels like the closest representation of how I feel about my own gender. Is I was raised mostly around men. Most of the healthy adults in my life were men and not women. And back in the 80s in rural Vermont, you weren't finding a lot of openly non-binary people, although I'm sure they were there. So being raised in a largely male environment, of course, we're talking typical male, of course, we all know that. But being, somebody who was born female myself, I did feel like I developed a little differently than the other little girls in my class at school who were raised around a lot of feminine influence. It seemed like they developed on a different track than me in a way. So when I learned this term Freemartin, it just made me feel a little bit more at home on this earth. So that is why I gave it a place of honor as the title of this third collection. So, all of that being said, let's dig right in. So, we have a bunch of poems. Got like 24 pages of poems here. Let's start with things I've been told to do only by other women, never by men. Speaking of men and women. Bear children each year, crush my tits in push up bras, pierce my lamb soft ears, plant lavish gardens in fall, shave all my glorious pubes, burn off my pit hair, wax my leg down that's so cute, no proof of puberty anywhere. Rise early, crush it at the gym, let Sephora steal my money, suck my belly with a grin, shimmy for boys who aren't funny, hold in all my shameful tears, appease the mother who keeps me trying, date a man who brings me fear, apologize for all my crying, talk about my wordless feelings, teeter on spine-frightening stilettos, build my brand from floor to ceiling, ignore that I'm weary straight down to my toes, spend precious time on a skincare routine, form an opinion on the master cleanse, slip on the uniform of the team, nail the choreography so dense, get in line, settle for less, and don't trust your place in the group even after passing the test. So yeah, this one has a lot of my own personal truth. I won't say that it's everybody's truth, but it's my own personal experience that most of the limiting figures in my life growing up were women. And most of the figures in my life who were encouraging me to be more adventurous were men. Uh, and it really frustrated me when I started to notice that pattern of women in my life telling me, oh, this is the experience of women, people will treat you this way, rather than me ever going out into the world and actually having that experience for myself. Because what I noticed is that women who were raised in more of a feminine centered environment tended to be really afraid of men in a way that I am just not, because I've just been around them so much and I know that they're just people. They're just people. And in the same way that it's unfair to generalize women, it's unfair to generalize men. And when I stopped allowing my opinion to be dictated by all of these frightening what ifs, and I started engaging with men as people, as individuals, what I found is that my experience was overall pretty positive. Curious what your thoughts are in the comments. Second poem, Let Us Rise. We all just want to see the roving sky. This girl was taught by eyes of wiser kin. I lived for far too long as flattened land and learned the yawning shape of hungry wind. Today I'm trending luscious, Rubenesque, all glacier-rounded mountains like Vermont. In this place, the fall air is crisp and fresh. An ancient black cat sits on my soft lap. To hold our elders safe is privilege. We all deserve a shot to see the sky. I close my eyes and dream of molting birds. The news tells me how Trump is building camps. Not to worry, little girl, only the very worst will be so damned. Good sir, do you mean the ones who got trapped between death's robe and taking a chance? We all just want to stroll and give the wind a little taste. I recall the graphic pictures from back in the day when we got scared after jets crashed through, so we disappeared brown folks to Guantanamo. My Time magazine showed faces all bloody bruised, gaunt, rubbed raw, and violated wrists. You know, surely a new generation can do better than that shit. We all just want a shot to form ourselves, unmolested by bizarre jealousies, no one protesting because we exist, the air touched by the perfume of bodies, seen by nothing but soft and loving eyes. We all just want to breathe the air outside. We were supposed to be the great future, but the past wouldn't step aside, wouldn't die, and it's so great that they're still here alive, but they just won't let us pull up our chairs. Why not build homes instead of those camps? We have hands to do more, I swear. Why can you not give us a fighting chance? We want to succeed. We crave to try. We took a look at the state of the world and we all got IUDs, ignored the pain so blindly white. We're aching to get up off of our knees. We all deserve a shot to see the sky. Please, just let us rise. So a lot of millennial rage and angst in this one. I'm a person who was in my early teens when 9/11 happened, and I wasn't really in a position in the world to feel like I had much control over anything, right? I was about 14. This was before social media was really a thing, so I didn't feel like I had much of a voice. And all I could really hang on to was the idea that one day I would be in charge. I would have a say over how things go. And when I was, things would go better. And that was a promise I made to myself and continued to remind myself of as I navigated my teenage years, which were not easy. So, now that I am of voting age and then some, I find myself, again, just really upset and disgusted by what I see in the news and wondering what it is that I can actually do. Because no longer am I someone who can say, well, I can't do anything, because that's just not true. Thomas is really exploring the space over there. That's just not true anymore. I'm not 14. I'm not powerless. I'm a grown person with a lot of agency, and I don't want to look back at this time in history and be embarrassed at my lack of action. So, having a lot of those type of thoughts with this poem here. Next, another long title. To the underage girl wearing retinol patches on her flawless skin. Your face is already acceptable. It's fine just as it is. Kid, keep your mad money for tickets to live shows and gag gifts for your friends. Ask, who would keep you a girl forever? Imprison your face so it ages never. They're not someone on your team, on your side. True allies will welcome your growth. Their feedback is unfailingly kind. Remember how it felt before all the ads swooped in? Recall how the fall started. Helpful. A forest of reasonable answers, hands ready with salvation. Whose pleasure is that retinol for, my friend? Time swept me into its arms. On the day that it caught up, I fell ravished to its soft embrace. The years are no enemies of mine. The door is yielding in every direction if you would open your clear eyes. The retinol won't lead to comprehension, it's here to iron out all your timelines. It's completely up to you. I'll keep my thoughts silent, my face serene. But once upon a time, I was a teen like you, and if someone had told this to me, it would have helped to see me through. Based on a true story. In my day job life, I manage a cafe, and that includes a good amount of people watching. And one day I saw a girl walk into the cafe who couldn't have been older than 16, and she had those like stick on under eye patches under both of her eyes. And I found myself wondering, like, who could possibly need that product less than a 16-year-old girl? Like, when, like, it's hilarious. Like, no, teenagers don't need that. I thought I did when I was a teen, so I understand where she's coming from. But as a grown woman, I'm just like, oh God, I just wish that I could save you from wasting all of your time and money and effort on all of that bullshit. Oh, so if anybody out there is wearing that stuff on their face and is younger than, I don't know, dead, you don't need it. You're fine. Next, do not love me. Please, do not love me. My ribs were not made with hinges. If you crack me and release my heart, it happens with violence. You leave a body spatchcocked, sternum untidily unlocked, closer than ever before to the two-dimensional world. One thing's for sure, I cannot be your girl. Please, do not love me. My bones forget form as they melt for you. I am no garden snail, I grow no shell that holds me true. Your devotion leaves me softened in the rain, leaves me crawling for you so often that it cannot be healthy, cannot be something for my gain. Please do not love me. Do not force me to use the parachute on my back, something close to wings. The one I keep unfurling and packing, unfurling and packing. There is no testing my seams, only trusting and release, defense and attack, dry land and the seas. Do not love me, please. I am origami tissue. My skin will not forget where fingers touch. I will show it all, whether you crumple me or treat me as a bird, delicate among the rough. Please, do not love me unless you pledge to take each drop of my blood and refill my yearning veins with yours, unless you press my ear to your chest just so I can hear the roaring waves, unless you know that the moon does not show its face when you do not sleep next to me, unless my cool breath is what you crave. Do what you must, just please do not love me. This poem was born from a time of yearning among the wilds of online dating. I was freshly, not super freshly, but I was getting back on the dating scene after the end of a very long relationship. And I was realizing that I just needed not to get attached to anybody, because I knew that I wouldn't really, I would be escaping the work of actually getting over the long relationship if I just jumped right into something new. And at the ending, I think especially is showing how I was feeling at that time. I kind of couldn't bear the thought of trying something for that long again and failing. Next up, cherry almond. My father had working hands. Wooden dinner table. I sat to his right, thought toward my future, nibbled not enough of my meal, made my plans, hoped they would be real. Back in dial-up days, I cared for his hands. The old instructions. When dry, red, and cracking, dash to the bathroom door that's buckled, urge him to take care of his skin, rub Jurgen's cherry almond into his knuckles, one coat, and all is forgiven. My father worked all his life. Final days in hospice, unable to speak, still recognizing me. At his bedside, I thought about how he had made plans. I noticed his bald scalp peeling, so I grabbed some lotion, hospital-grade stuff. No cherry almond on the edge of this sink. And I smoothed it over his dry spots, just like when I was young and he was not. True story. Yeah, it's a really bittersweet memory I have of visiting my father in hospice, and yeah, it was really hard to see him in that state because he was always such an active guy. He was always playing sports with community leagues and woodworking, and not just woodworking but making things for people, and just always putting his hands to use in some way or another. And it was always in a way that was creating some sort of good, whether it was community or craftsmanship. But yeah, that man would not put some lotion on his hands to save his darn life. Oh my god. Just the most chapped ass winter knuckles up in those Vermont winters. Oh my god. So yeah, it was something that I just got in the habit of doing because I just knew he wouldn't do it, and I couldn't take the sight of them. I just couldn't do it. But yeah, he was in hospice, and his poor scalp was all dry and peeling. You know, that hospital air is pretty dry. And yeah, I just thought back to so many years before when I had just been putting lotion on him, and it seemed like this weird full circle moment. Next, do less, be gentle. I'm supposed to be asleep right now. I can't help but feel that something missing must be found. The wind sends me a late night text. It lights up my dark room. It says, when you are weary, sleep. Fuck the haters who prop you with caffeine. If you were meant to be wide-eyed, you would not feel empty. You would be filled with daylight. If sleep invites you to her home, attend. She puts on a lovely spread. The train clicks gently on its track. Do less, be gentle. Do less, be gentle. It rattles over the bridge. Do less, do less, do less, do less, do less. I'm supposed to be asleep right now. The mother train rocks me in the best way she knows how. I changed my identity. There is a new core. A gorgeous blend of those who carried me. Faces and voices I kept on retainer for times when I found myself in danger. I don't need extremes like those anymore. I built levees that hold back shark tides. Now I walk on peaceful beaches. I wash my life in respect for myself. When I love me so well, I cannot help but love the folks nearby. I yearn to kiss their cheeks. I crave to pick their leeches. I'm supposed to be asleep right now. My job is to be slow, a stone in the river, smoothed over time, a hand in a moment of panic, warm and steady in the tide. When we cry out in fear, we crave someone to soothe us, not a returning scream in the night. I'm supposed to be asleep right now. How does a body doze when it feels buried underground? My flesh hugs my bones, climbs like vines, embraces muscles like lovers, folds, flexes, flourishes. If I be forced to birth myself, then let me do it on all fours. Pass me a mirror, point it at my pussy so I can see it. If I have to crack my own pelvis to escape into freedom, then so be it. The rulebook says a woman's hair is her crowning glory. What does it make me if my wreath is a man's? It's sharp with jewels. I tore them from cave walls with my own hands. I melted down silver cloud linings, sized it just for me, made it perfectly balanced, and so damn flattering. Had enough metal left, made myself some knuckles and a ring. I'm supposed to be asleep right now, but I can't rest now that I have my crown. So this poem was written over a long stretch of time. I started it with this idea of I'm supposed to be asleep right now when I was working as a baker, and I was working really weird hours. I was going to bed at about 7 o'clock p.m. and I was getting up at like 2:30. And as a result, I lived like this weird, isolated life that was kind of tangential to society, but not really part of it. Um, it was, it's a really interesting lifestyle, and it's really meditative, but it's weird. So all of that being said, I started this back when I was working that bakery job where I was often finding myself feeling like I'm supposed to be asleep right now. It was before I got into the rhythm of the schedule and I would get tired. Um, and I found myself awake during nighttime hours a lot and then trying to sleep during daytime hours a lot. And so I found myself just like listening to sounds of the world a lot when I was either trying to sleep or when I was walking to work at 3 in the morning. Um, I would listen to the train on its track. There was a rickety ass bridge pretty close to where I used to live, and that train would really rattle as it traveled over the tracks, and I got used to those different sounds of the train approaching the bridge and then onto the bridge and then back off of it. But later on in the poem, I'm mentioning things about my job being to be slow and a stone in the river. And at that point, I had found my way to a job in front of house management again, which I am more comfortable with. It's more what I'm familiar doing. And I was realizing that it wasn't my job so much to be this Energizer bunny who can bake bread on command. It was my job to slow down and be a listener and be someone who can be still when someone else is having trouble being still themselves. Um, so I was having just a lot of feelings about that. I was also just working through a lot of, tough stuff around just feeling comfortable in my body. And I feel like that's about as specific as I want to be there. Moving on, collage. I used to lock myself in my bedroom. Brass plate versus family come undone. I used to put on Death Cab for Cutie. Cheap, hard plastic headphones fed my eardrums. I tried to make a picture that made sense. I sliced up magazines instead of skin. A strange melange poured forth from my small hands. Pubescent rage and political news. This was way back in 2002, back when I was drowning when I didn't know what else to do. Now it's 2025. My body changes once again. The world is still too wide to comprehend. So today I fled. I woke up in a Target, stalked the aisles, fluorescent harshness, found those comforts that I reached for way back when. Glue sticks that dry clear, glossy mags teaching girls to become, poster board to hold it all close as a mother. I wondered what decades had done, what might now release and uncover. Yeah. The arts have always been something that have kept me safe and sane when my life didn't feel that way. And I have 3 big fat binders of 8.5 by 11 collages that I made over the course of my freshman and sophomore years of high school when I was struggling with a lot of stuff that I didn't even know I was struggling with. And all I knew was that I was just desperately uncomfortable with the way life felt. And what I'm noticing is that as I approach 40, I feel my body shifting the way that bodies shift as you age, and I find myself similarly drawn to just wanting to create things because I want some proof that that version of me was real and that it wasn't all made up. Speaking of comfort in your body, here comes the next poem, Middle Pain. The German word is Mittelschmerz. It translates to middle pain. Another definition I can trade? Slippery guts torn ragged by a master's searching blade. No white flag thrown by my hands is enough. Middle pain, she fucks you rough. Middle pain shouts, potential is bursting through the door. I dig deep. I do my best to ignore it. I do amazing self-care for it, and it is still a bomb inside. It is still a knife. It translates to middle pain. As Trump curled all his naughty fingers around my country's wheel, my body's cavern echoed my own eggs' protesting squeals. It chose last night to throw a fist and make the journey, to remind me of my burden, to bring me back down to sea level just when I began to rise, just when I started to forget how the ache of each month feels, just when it started to seem not real. It translates to middle pain. This ride's a comic villain. It lacks those human decencies of tact and timing, much like our new president, you see. Though I resent the state of our union, I feel no confusion over which things I can control. I cannot change the results of cycles, but I can let my words spin. When I feel the horror slip onto my face, I can mask it with a deep grin. It translates to middle pain. How can I explain that this is not the proper label? Let's rework it with the writers who named Axe and Doritos. Something more neon 90s extreme, please. If I have to have it, can it at least sound radical? It translates to middle pain, and even though I find the light, that glow comes from a bomb inside. Do not make me admire your fine sword, it's just a knife. Ah, if you know, you know. Anyone who has PMDD knows the excitement of the menstrual cycle. Yeah, it's a real pain in the ass and everywhere else. And part of that is a pretty painful experience during ovulation. And um, I happened to be ovulating right when Trump was getting, uh, I guess, sworn in as whatever president means now. So I was dealing with sort of like the violation of my country and feeling like the violation of my body itself at the same time. It was just like not a great night. So like I usually do when I feel like everything sucks, I realized that I should probably write instead of just feeling like everything sucks. Yeah, and if you have PMDD like I do, you have my empathy. Next up, there's a trick to it. My trusty ride died a few days ago. It flew so fast, right until it burned out. It passed in the middle of the commute, far from the end of its natural life. The folks at the shop tactfully told me that rehabbing my pink sticker-clad steed would cost more than a good used replacement, then left it to me to choose my way. I loved them for the easy atmosphere, for the time to think that they allowed me. Zoom into my eye. You will see my father and his parade of decayed pickup trucks, bodies already well worn at the point they reached his hands, and experienced him, a man who thought he could halt how time rusts. I saw myself tripping down Dad's same path, always making do, having to recall how there's a trick to it, which is really poverty language for we can't afford to repair this, which is unbearable, so we'll pretend it's a skill set others should envy to make our way of life work. I politely declined the repair and looked instead for a new scooter to ride, something that would carry my body instead of asking me to bear its weight. Yeah, I had this really cool pink GoTrax scooter, and I just literally ran it into the ground. I loved it so much, I rode it all over the city, and yeah, it just burned right out. And the scooter shop guys were honest with me, and they're like, "This is not really worth replacing. It's just like an entry level model. It's gonna cost the same amount to replace or repair." Um, so yeah, so it made me think a lot about how frustrating it was to watch my dad buy like truck after truck after truck that were in bad shape, and he somehow told himself that they weren't going to break down on him, even though they absolutely were going to break down on him. And it's like watching somebody continually date terrible people and then wonder why their life is chaos. I'm just like, you're doing this to yourself, right? So yeah, I couldn't put myself in that same position where I was just always going crazy over my transportation. I was like, no, I've worked too hard. There's a reason that I've been so career focused. It's because I didn't want to have to worry about money in that way, where I had to just always make something shitty work. Like I never want to be in that position again. Next one is a short one. The wisdom to know the difference. Today, I found out I have to move. Something I did not want. So I cried for a few minutes. I went downstairs to the kitchen, cooked some pancetta, Fried a fat chicken breast in the grease, chopped it with some Brussels sprouts, threw it all in a bowl with some chipotle mayo, and tossed it until I had chicken salad to eat. Yeah, this one pissed me off to write. My landlord sold our apartment out from under us with a really just insulting short notice offer to buy the place with a counter offer. They gave us about a week to gen up a counter offer, and I was like, you don't really mean this, do you? Um, so I was really pissed off that I had to move from a place that felt pretty good, and I had just finally started to feel settled in. But I've done enough work in AA to know that some things you just can't control, and fighting them is what leads you down a bad path. So I focused on what I could control. I focused on the fact that I was gonna have to eat something at some point later that day, and I had food in the fridge that needed to be cooked. So I was like, this is something concrete I can control that's a positive benefit to my life. And I don't have to figure out the rest beyond that. And wouldn't you know it, I figured out a new I'm in my new place now, and everything worked out fine. Next, here with you. I am sitting here with you because how else would our hands meet? How else could I see the truth? Who else could ever make me feel this alive? What else could join our lips like glue? Riverbanks barely hold the waters into which you dive. There is no other nation my body would choose in which to sink down its strong roots. I am sitting here with you, so thoroughly consumed, so captured as minutes twist. The only screen time I crave is your kind eyes. It's the light between them that makes me gorgeous. This scene with you, I could gorge on it, that's my wish. I could mainline your deep kiss, but I want 100 years, so moderation it is. I am sitting here with you, toes splashing the oasis. There is shade in this place, and all these fruit trees with branches aching cannot be wrong in their scent. Just for a moment we ravage nectarines that drip, then it's back to the dance. My hands on your shoulders, yours on my hips. 4 on the floor drops hard, and you tighten your grip. I am sitting here with you only because our feet are exhausted from adventure, only because we turned every stone in the world. Elders all screamed that the land had burned, but we had to see for ourselves. We had to be sure. For an afternoon moment or two, we share a pot of tea fresh brewed, before we burst back through the door to run wild and eat the sunset view. I wrote this one about someone I dated for almost a year. And I think in retrospect, it was more wishful thinking than a realistic report of the relationship. I feel like I was writing more about what I wanted from a relationship, not necessarily what I was getting. But yeah, this is kind of what I would like from a partner, and I'm kind of fine with being alone unless something like that comes along. Because I have a pretty kick-ass life, and I enjoy it a lot, and I've created peace for myself. So it kind of has to be as good as this to disturb that peace in any way. Next up, Ice Age. Shall I describe the Ice Age of 2025? The glaciers are black, made of pale heads, bandanas, and backwards baseball caps. We're coming for you. For now you have rights, but we have our guns, and once you're zip-tied, you can't fight. The bright mountains are reshaped into something crushed and round. What sharp features will we miss once the glaciers melt away? What silence will replace sound? Will we lock you in a van, or will we stow you in a plane? Just when you start to learn them, we change the rules to our game. I sneak with steaming kettle, sabotage in the night, tiptoe to glacier base, pour out rage, destabilize the fright, melt a tunnel through, show the molecules how they can become a shape that's rebellious and new. We're marching on to Gilead. Our faith could not be more strong. God is on our side, and so the works of our hands cannot be wrong. To survive an ice age requires Arctic insulation. That's why when bodies gain weight, the powers above cry, "Dying nation!" They weep it's not right. But then, a sturdy lock does offend a thief who moves at night. Ugh, I wrote this one when ice was swarming my city, and I hated it, and like I've mentioned previously in this video, I just hate feeling like there's nothing I can do to fix it. And um so all I felt like I could do was write about it. And a version of this actually was first published in a local Somerville paper. But I have since reworked it. So this is the version that you see today. Yeah, it's really gross. The idea that people were being warehoused just miles away from where I live in a way that I thought we had established was wrong. Like back in World War II. What are we doing? Alright. All that being said, I'll give you one last poem. This one is called Nations Have Armies. I rule my body. I kind of just have this policy wherein I have to hold higher standards than the law even. I have to function as a sovereign nation. We all know nations have armies. I never wanted to commit harm, but as a young woman with slender arms, I found myself in a vulnerable position. And so, I made an early commitment. I learned to kickbox with no rules. I learned to dirty fight a man to the ground. I turned my sweet voice into a growl. I spent a whole year of my early 20s just getting ready for what was coming. We all know nations have armies. I rarely need those skills, but I haven't forgotten a thing. This mess we're in best clear up fast. Don't make me turn my rings. We all know nations have armies. I know so much more now than that braided girl did. I know what's allowed, both from me and from the crowd. I learned how to steer into the skid. We all know nations have armies. I can so easily spot those who would harm me. How could the patriarchy possibly catch me when they're moving in bullet time? I'm already up too high. Too late to destroy me. Too late to bonsai deform me. We all know nations have armies. Even the ones who smile pretty, who talk a big game about quality of life. Just question the wrong person twice. You'll see. We all know nations have armies. Yeah, this one kind of mirrors the first poem. You know, part of the reason why I learned all that kickboxing is because people around me convinced me that I was just a prey to everyone as a young, beautiful woman. They were convinced I was just convinced that everyone was out to snatch me, to kidnap me, to sexually violate me in some way. I was just absolutely terrified. And so that was the reason that I learned all of that self-defense, is because I just didn't want all of these horrible what ifs to happen. And again, as someone older now, I can see that sure, like those things absolutely do happen and it's awful, but it's also not a sure thing by any means. So there's no reason to start from a place of terror. Awareness, yes. Terror, no thank you. So for that reason, I kind of bookended the chapbook with those two poems. So thank you so much for listening to me read you my new book, Freemartin. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you download a copy to read at your leisure. And most importantly, I hope that you come back next time for some more poetry. Thanks so much.